I think Chris is coming, right?
Yes, he's on his way, so he'll join us shortly. But I think we're ready to get going. All right, good evening. We now call to order the regular meeting of the West Sacramento Port. And we have Commissioner Ledesma that will join us shortly. Commissioner Cabalden is not with us this evening, but we do have Commissioner Orozco. Welcome.
Thank you.
So to start us off with Pledge of Allegiance, Commissioner McGowan, would you lead us in the pledge? Yes, sir.
Take it right. You did great. Yeah, make it happen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, redemption is sweet. All right. Item 1 is presentations by public on matters that are not on the agenda but within our subject jurisdiction, and we don't have any slips to speak, and we have nobody present to speak. So we're going to move on to item 2, which is the consent agenda. We have 2 items.
I'll move consent.
All right, so we have a motion to move the consent items 2 and 3. We have a second.
Second.
So we have a second by Commissioner McGowan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries 4-0. That takes us to the regular agenda. That's item 4, and that's consideration of the port budget and fiscal year 1920. Mr. Toft, good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioners. Good, our overhead is working. Started off with just a snapshot of Lake Washington as a reminder that we completed that cleanup project. So we're going to start with a review of the current fiscal year, which we're just wrapping up, which was the first year of the second 5-year term of the SSA lease for the North Terminal. Another good year, a very strong year. Net operating income, or net profit, if you will, of 1.268 million. We're seeing stable real estate revenues, as well as vessel and rail fees. Down a little bit on the rail side, which I'll get to, but generally stable. And a recurring theme in my comments tonight is going to be insurance, particularly excess property insurance, which has gone up and is why our operating expenses are a little bit higher than last year and going forward. So looking at cargo, very stable year. Our 2 bread and butter commodities, cement and rice, we're up a little bit on rice, down a little bit on cement, but generally speaking, coming in right about where we were last year, just over 650,000 metric tons. And I expect that to be fairly stable going forward. So summary of the current year. A couple of changes I'll highlight on the revenue side. So 2.6 and change on total revenues. That includes real estate, vessel, and rail fees. And if you look at the detail budget attachment to your staff report, you'll see that we now have a reimbursement line under revenues, which we haven't included before. Most of that reimbursement is utility reimbursements, the way we sub-meter our tenants out at the North Terminal, and in the past we just netted out the receipts from the expenses. Now, to kind of comply with the way the city finance department works, we're showing the full expense, but we're also capturing the reimbursements and the revenue. And we're showing interest for the first time because it's actually becoming significant. We have cash reserves which generate interest, and we now have a loan with the city where the city is paying us interest related to that courtyard property transfer. So a little bit of revenue there as well. But overall, pretty stable from last year. Total expenses, again, up because of property insurance. Legal fees up a little bit, but I would attribute that to real estate projects which we're getting more involved with, and there'll be a recommendation later to move some of those expenses from operating into the capital side project expenses. So net operating income down a tad from last year, but significantly higher than we budgeted, so good news there. And leaving us with a cash reserve of a little over $2.6 million. Minimal change from last year, and that's because we spent what we made this year. So here's a summary of where we spent our profits for the year. You'll see a large item for the Barge Canal Trail, which is about to break ground, $709,000. That includes the port's 50% share of the construction plus the design of that project. The North Terminal project's primarily paving. We completed a major paving project this year, which was a significant project on the maritime side. We have some property development costs, again, related to, both the Stonewalk 1 project, which didn't go forward, but primarily related to Project Titan, which is in escrow right now. So we had some professional services and legal related to that. So that's how we spent our profits this year. I'll also point out where some of this is reimbursable. The YOLO HCP prepaid fees, that will come back to us when development fees come in for Project Titan, and later with Stonewalk 1, if we sell that property. Going forward, we won't have a boating and waterways grant match anymore. We finished that. That was related to the Lake Washington cleanup project.
Rick, I'm sorry, Rick, the Habitat, the $50,000 for the HCP, is that prepaid for what and for how long? What's the?
It's just it was seed money, if you will, so that agency is struggling as they start up. There's not a lot of development occurring in Yolo County apparently, so the fee that we paid this year was really the footprint of the Barge Canal Trail, anticipating that. And so you'll see in the next fiscal year we're prepaying an additional fee, and that's really related to Project Titan. So we'll get those funds back eventually, but.
Chime in really quick on that. So some jurisdictions actually made a loan to the Conservancy. We elected to buy credits, like Rick described, so we can use them on projects that we have in the pipeline.
That's perfect. Yeah, smart.
Okay, so moving ahead to the budget for 1920. I want to make sure I didn't skip anything. There we go. So the green column highlights the proposed budget for 1920. You can see our real estate revenues are stable. We're very conservative on the vessel and rail fees, and a little bit of a tick up in the interest income, which is related to that note with the city that I mentioned. Operating expenses, again, a little higher, and that's really 100% attributable to the new excess property insurance premium that YC Parmia has reinstated. And a net operating income of a little over $1 million, so projected to have another solid, profitable year ahead. We're proposing to spend about 3/4 of that profit on various projects, which I'll get to, leaving a little surplus, $336,000, to finish the year at about a $3 million cash reserve. So, as I mentioned, and as you all know, the port's getting more involved in real estate development, and so a lot of the legal fees and the professional service fees that we typically just assign those as operating expenses. Going forward, I'd like to shift those that are related to projects into a capital fund for real estate, if you will. And I think, going forward, we'll see more of that. So professional services, legal, and obviously construction. And so here's a summary of the proposed capital program for 1920, the real estate projects, which I just mentioned, related to Project Titan, but also the North Terminal. West of Harbor Boulevard, we'd like to start planning. That's a 50-acre tract of land. We've been entertaining a potential tank farm project there. We have the Sierra Northern property. We know we need internal roadways, so we need to really figure out kind of parcelization there and how we want that to develop over time, and then make it compatible with the balance of the North Terminal to the east of Harbor Boulevard. So probably come back to you later in the year with a professional services contract for that. On the North Terminal itself, projecting or requesting $500,000 for various projects. The first one, E-Warehouse, you might recall we were in contract to demolish D-Warehouse, which is attached to E-Warehouse, and you'll see in the next few weeks, you're going to see D come down, and it'll be a very visible project from Harbor Boulevard. But when that comes down, we'll be left, E is a functional building, but the south elevation will be require repairs. So that's one thing that I'd like to restore. We have G Warehouse, which is it doesn't have any electricity in it at all. It's we can make it a lot more functional by adding lights and electrifying the roll-up doors. That'll help SSA out with the Rice business as well. We have some vintage 1963 restrooms that could use some attention, and probably some more pavement work as well. So my favorite item here, the YC Parmia insurance settlement. So what happened, they stopped billing us for an excess property insurance premium, which we attributed to our conversion to an operating model, a landlord model, I'm sorry, from an operating model. But it turns out they had just inadvertently stopped billing us for this premium. And so they realized their error, and there are 4 years of non-payment. So the current budget, or the reconciling of last year's budget, includes $140,000 for paying this fiscal year, 18-19. We're recommending payment of next fiscal year at $180,000, and that's their estimate. And we have really no control over this cost. It bounces around, and it's a mystery to me as to how they establish it. It's the policies provided through CSAC Insurance Authority, which I believe is that board is appointed by all the counties in the state. They assign an extra risk premium to the port because they think it's a higher risk profile. So we have 2 of the 4 years in last year's budget and this year's budget already. The remaining 2 years, 16-17 and 17-18, that totals about $300,000 that we've $320,000. We negotiate a 4-year payback. So the $65,000 you see there would be annual for 4 years, and I put it on the capital side rather than operating, but that's what that is. And with your approval tonight, we'll make those payments. They have. We've met with them, their new director, and he assures us that he will look into the variability in that expense and work with us to help reduce it. So that'll be one of my expense priorities for the coming year.
Mr. Sandy?
Do we have a claim history at all with them?
No. It's been a long time. No. It's not related to claims. So despite our objections and request for clarification as to how the rate is established, it's a bit of a mystery to us. You know.
Commissioner McGowan?
Chair?
Yeah.
A couple things, and I probably shouldn't even mention it because I don't know any of the particulars, but I somewhere led to believe that there was some interesting dynamics in the change of the leadership there at YC Parmia. And I don't know whether this particular issue is swept up in some of that melodrama or not. I'd be curious to find out. But what you're telling me is that they're prepared to undertake some sort of an analysis to see why we have the payment that we do. We think it's high, and they're going to come up with you're asking for a better rationale. Why would we pay them until they come up with a rationale then?
Good question. We are agreeing, or we're proposing a 4-year payback without interest, so they're suffering a little bit there. And I indicated that, you know, with some reduction, we could perhaps accelerate that payment schedule as a little incentive for them to reduce cost. But I think the new director is, you know, straightforward and is trying to, you know, restore, you know, financial transparency and accuracy. They're aware of our displeasure. So we're optimistic that they'll.
Yeah, but I'll support whatever you really recommend here, to be honest with you, but ultimately, but it seems to me there's one or two ways to go. They're saying, will you pay me the money, we'll go back and we'll put our green eye shades on and we'll do some sharp pencil stuff and see if we can come up with something. The alternative is say, go do that and come back and tell me what the real number is and I'll start paying you.
Right, and they have provided an explanation for how they arrive at the premium. I don't quite understand it. I think we'd need a, you know, professional, well, they are professional risk managers, and it's even difficult for them to articulate. So, you know, we could, you know, I indicated this was subject to commission approval. So your call, our recommendation is to pay it off over 4 years. That coincides with the expiration of the SSA lease, so we would kind of start clean.
I guess I'm just trying to understand it so we could potentially give you whatever latitude and flexibility you needed to, you know, get what you wanted out of the deal.
Right.
Oh, yeah, Commissioner McGowan, I think having that direction is helpful. I think what's at issue is if we end up having to make the payment, we'll need the budget authority to do it, but we can certainly push back on the timing of it based on the direction from the commission. So for tonight, though, to put it in the budget,
Okay, I got you.
we would still recommend going ahead with that.
Got it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So on that item, if I can I just follow up? So you said it's in the capital budget, not necessarily in the operating. Is this because of the catch-up period that we're in, or is that ordinarily the case?
Well, so it's I consider it one time. It's a settlement, and so
Okay,
it's not. While it should have been, or it would have been, operating expense from previous years, and going forward, we have they've reinstated the premium. That's definitely in the operating budget.
Okay, good enough. That's what.
Yeah. So this is just a kind of a one-off expense that didn't fit in operating.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Any other questions?
And then the last item, again, is another YOLO ACP prepayment. That one, when Project Titan, if and when Project Titan is approved and pulls building permits, their HCP fee will be well in excess of that amount, so we'll recoup that upon issuance of building permits. So with that concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Any other questions by any of the commissioners? No.
I don't have any questions. I just, I want to thank the COO and the CEO for their work. These are, I think, excellent results and really positive. I know that they're conservative, but I think positive looking in the future. So I really appreciate the hard work.
Yeah, no, well done, and it's tracking nicely with what we projected 5 years ago. I mean, this is actually, this is almost exactly where you all projected we would be if we made some tough decisions, so.
Thank you for that, and but I want to acknowledge the Port COO. This is, it may have been last year too, but definitely for the first full fiscal year, he's taken over management of the budget and prepared the budget and the presentation that went with it. That was a role that I had helped do previously, so I just want to acknowledge Rick for his work on that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I introduced a new color scheme. That was a big executive decision.
I like the dark green was very good. Your eyes draw right to that right line item. Very good, Rick. Yep, hiring you for your talents that we knew you had. All right, so seeing no other questions, we do have a request that we adopt.
Well, Chris was late. Do you want us to start all over again and go back?
Yeah, do it all over again.
Yeah, right, just what you want.
I move recommended action.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Sandine. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really good. All right, so that takes us to item 5, which is Commissioner reports. Any reports from any of the members of the Port Commission?
No report, but when you talk about the demolishment or the tearing down of that one building, I don't even know how I'm out of the loop as far as your public information piece is concerned, but I think that might be something folks would be interested in, because they're going to, a good percentage of our population to see it happen in front of their eyes as they're driving to and from work. So if there's some notice or article you can put out, just explain it, I think it'd be nice. Otherwise, they'll ask us.
Yeah, I'll work with Paul Hossley, the city's
Thanks.
PIO, on that, yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be good. I actually want to follow up a little bit with what I'm sure everybody else is hearing as well, and that is, it seems, and Rick, we talked about this a little bit, I know you're trying to figure out kind of where it's emanating from, but that is the rail line that crosses Jefferson Boulevard accessing the port has become, once again, it's flared up again, and so I know that there have been back-to-back evenings with, I think, 40 minutes plus of the rail cars back in and out. And
Right.
So it's not necessarily a report, it's more of a request that we continue to sort of dig to figure out what exactly is happening between the short line and UP and what's causing that at 5 o'clock in the evening on, the southbound,
Yeah.
which is the major arterial, and then oftentimes in the morning as well, northbound. So just the timing is, you couldn't have worse timing. And we want the port to be a good neighbor, but it makes it difficult when it's hard to explain, so.
Right. Yeah, I'm on it, and I think you're going to see a reduction in the blockages going forward. But there have been equipment failures, there's been personnel failures, there's been communication failures, and Cemex now is moving freight, and so our short line operator has loaded up that track with empty cars. That's been their primary business, and on very short notice, Cemex started moving freight, so they had to move those cars out of the way, up to 120 cars, and made some very poor decisions, had some equipment failures, and got pushed into rush hour in the evening because of some work that UP was doing at the Micon crossing, which is now complete. A lot of excuses, frankly, but they have agreed to modify their operations now that Cemex is moving freight. So fingers crossed. And I've established a log. Not just, we weren't just experiencing the issue on Jefferson, but the port itself was blocked for extended periods of time.
I was stuck in that as well.
And about 6 incidents in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not just, I mean, it's easy to just complain when you're just inconvenienced, but the problem is that it has flared up to the point where I've seen some very scary road rage, and that trans into a whole different level of problem. So we have to be serious about figuring out what the issues are and how they need to be addressed.
Right.
So, okay, appreciate I know you're on it, so.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I think since the last Port Commission meeting, I think since then, we had the Lake Washington cleanup celebration. And I wanted to thank the CO for all the work on getting the cleanup done, but also for that celebration. And you were there, and Mr. Chair, and did a great job representing us.
Thank you. Yeah, no, and all three of you gentlemen that were here have been in the fight for many years, and I know the legal battles began way back when, so it's a nice culmination of a lot of, a long-term vision and some serious stick-to-itiveness, so thank you. Nothing? No? All right. All right, so Port CO report.
No report tonight, thank you.
We are looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Motion and a second. We're adjourned.
Aye.